What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday was April Fool's Day, which means we're mostly all navigating the internet and social media and seeing all these different announcements and trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And one article popped up yesterday that even had me questioning if it was an April Fool's Day joke from VGC mentioning E3 having a paywall this year. Well, turns out that was an actual article and report from them, and it got out of control online to the point where the ESA and E3 had to respond to it. And we're gonna talk about all of the confusion there. Also, we did get sales numbers for Monster Hunter Rise's debut week in Japan, alongside of a big spike in Switch sales. And we also had CD Projekt Red talking about their development future, as well as the multiplayer that's supposed to be showing up for Cyberpunk 2077. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Small channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with a game that was originally presented to us as an April Fool's Day joke, I think like a year ago, from Platinum Games. And you can see the trailer here because this is actually happening now. It's been rated even by the Korean ratings board, so it all seems legit. This is Soul Cresta, and going over to Gamatsu, they say Platinum Games, in partnership with Hamster, has announced Soul Cresta, a new title that inherits the spirit of classic shoot-'em-up games Moon Cresta and Terra Cresta, and the first entry in its neoclassic arcade series. It will be available for the PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC through Steam. And it got me thinking, you know what, if you're a company, a developer, a publisher, whoever, and you want to just see how everyone reacts to an idea or a pitch that you have, but you don't want to, or you at least want to have an out, show it to everyone on April Fool's Day. I mean, because if people don't like it, they're like, what's this? You go, oh, it's a joke. We're just playing along with the spirit of April Fool's Day. And then you know, okay, that wasn't it. But if they get really excited about it, like it seemed that people did with Soul Cresta a year ago, where they said, hey, that actually looked pretty cool from Platinum Games. It's a shame they're not doing it. Well, here we are now a year later, and they are. So it's an interesting strategy that these developers can do. At least Soul Cresta appears to be showing up maybe this year. We'll keep an eye out for a release date. Also, we just talked about the spring sale on the PlayStation Network. It looks like we also have a spring sale from Microsoft on the Xbox Network, and we can see this here. This will be running March 26th to April 15th. They put up an entire post as well as a link to all the different games, talking about hundreds of games, and naturally I went through and picked out some of the cheaper ones I thought looked pretty good. We'll start with Skate 3 for $4, Cuphead for $15, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, the HD 1 and 2, that's actually marked down to $30 here, Crash Insane Trilogy at $20, Witcher 3 Complete is $10 here as well. Once again, I would get that locked in if you were curious about the game, or if you're looking forward to that next-gen patch that is coming up. The BioShock Collection might be the best bang for the buck here at $10. That, of course, has 1, 2, and Infinite. And then we also have Dead Island Definitive Edition at $6, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 HD. Remember, these do include 360 games as we looked at Skate 3. That being $10, Metal Gear Rising at $5, and Project Cars 3, which is a game that I did like. It was a good racing game, at $30. So once again, another good sale here to look through. It does make it a little harder because you go through these sales and you're like, oh, that's on Game Pass, that's on Game Pass. I already have that in the library, and that tends to be what happens here. But not everyone has Game Pass, so sometimes you see these deals pop up and it's like, oh, cool, $10 for Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 HD, which did leave Game Pass, by the way. So that's actually not a bad pickup there, but hundreds of games to go through, so let me know your best picks down below. Oh, and here's something interesting. We had Outriders release yesterday, of course, to Game Pass and on PlayStation and on PC, and turns out Outriders did significantly better than the Avengers did, both from Square Enix. Take a look here. This is on SteamDB. This is all for PC specifically, tracked through Steam, where we can see Marvel Avengers had 31,165 all-time peak concurrent players. But if we look at Outriders, already 111,953. This is very interesting because Outriders, they've continuously said this is not a live service, quote unquote, style game. It's like they have it complete, it's done, and if people like it, they can, I guess, go off and do more content for it. It comes down to the reaction of the players and the overall community. Well, it's now more than tripled the overall concurrent player count of the Avengers game already day one. So there does seem to be more excitement around this game than I thought there would be, even on PC. But still, hey, good for People Can Fly, and we'll see how this game continues to go along here, and if they can keep up with it with more content, as long as Square appears interested to more or less fund that extra content. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with E3 2021 and the massive amount of confusion that happened yesterday. This all came from VGC in a report that they put out there. Now, if you remember, E3 2020 was canceled, which makes sense at the time with the pandemic and all of this, and everyone was scrambling, trying to figure out what to do, and they decided, hey, you know what, we'll see you guys next year. And maybe they were thinking we'd be to a point where we could have a big in-person event like this. Not the case, though. They're going to go all digital this year. Once again, maybe next year they can go back to having an in-person event, which means they have to come up with a good digital presentation and event, which is starting to get me wondering how they're going to do that and still make substantial amounts of money like they do with their in-person event. Well, take a look this here from VGC, where they say multiple publishing sources told VGC this month that the event organizer had pitched plans to charge a fee for some of 2021's planned content, such as on-demand game demos or a premium package with extra access. One source suggested that the premium package had been pitched to publishers at $35. And yeah, a lot of reactions online, even with Jeff Keighley kind of chiming in saying free to play for Summer Game Fest. You might as well, I mean, you're working to promote your own event there, and obviously contrasting what could possibly be a digital ticket to E3 at $35. Yeah, you might as well go ahead and tweet that out. But we did have the E3 respond on their Twitter account saying E3's 2021 digital show is a free event for all attendees. We're excited to fill you in on all the real news for the event very soon. They also responded to VGC here where they said, I can confirm on behalf of the ESA that there will be no elements at E3 2021 that will be behind a pay for pass or paywall. That's a spokesperson told VGC. In an earlier statement sent to VGC ahead of publication, the ESA said it would deliver a free experience for everyone interested in E3 2021, but didn't specifically rule out paid for features. Okay, so this situation is very interesting because I don't personally see any way that E3 can exist successfully like it has if it's an all digital event, mostly because I don't really understand why these different publishers or developers wouldn't just go live on YouTube themselves or create their own event. Does Square really need to be a part of a digital E3 presentation that, who knows, maybe they have to crunch to get the trailers done on time or set up as E3 would like it to be, or they can just tweet out and say, yeah, we're gonna do our own presentation, or we'll be on the end of the state of play or something. Like, there are other options for some of these larger publishers than to try to be part of a live stream. It's different when it's in person because there is a lot of work, advertising, and overall marketing that goes in to having E3 be an actual event. And there are a lot of eyes on E3 when they have that large presentation, a big convention center, and bring everyone together. And you do have a lot of closed door meetings that take place, and you rely on E3 and the ESA to kind of facilitate all of that. So there is value there, whereas just going live on YouTube, I don't really know why I would pay millions of dollars for that to happen if I'm Square or Nintendo or anyone else. And while the ESA and E3 did respond saying that it's going to be free to everyone who wants to, you know, watch E3 or watch the live streams, which would have been weird, by the way, to do like a premium pass thing where you have to pay, it could have been $35. I have a feeling they did at least think about this whole thing. Like, they could have gone to a partner, a publisher, whoever, and said, this is what we're thinking. How do you feel about us charging a ticket price for someone who maybe wants to get access to a demo that you create specifically for this group of people who have paid it, and then maybe they get some of the money? Hard to say there, but E3 is very lucrative for the ESA, so I don't know if they're willingly gonna let all of that go. I mean, I believe E3 will come back in some capacity as an in-person event. Will it be as large as it has been in the past? I don't know. I mean, maybe they could even relocate it now, since I think the in LA, their convention center there, I feel like that contract is up now, going into 2022, so they could, I guess, go anywhere they would like to if they want to almost reimagine the overall event. But I feel like it has to exist in person for the ESA to make the effort to do it. And you know what? I would like E3 to come back at some point as an in-person event because I never got to go to it, and I would like to go to at least one time before it goes away for good, if it does. But at this time, it does not appear that there will be any kind of paywall. VGC maybe just had some info that they ran as a report, and we'll wait for E3 to I guess, unveil their whole plan of how they're going to have this event be digital in a couple of months. Next up, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts in Japan. This covers Monster Hunter Rise's first week at retail in stores, and we can head over here to the charts where we see Monster Hunter Rise at the top, 1.3 million copies. This would have been Friday and Saturday tracked, and apparently that's like a 95% sell-through rate there. So yeah, it sold out pretty easily at most locations, and they're looking to get more and more stock in. I keep seeing people posting pictures on Twitter of a lot of these spots, these big advertisements for Monster Hunter Rise, and then there's being empty shelves underneath of it. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury was actually number 2 there at 37,166 units. And then we had an interesting thing here with a third-party game, the quintessential quintuplets, that being 20,000 units on the Switch, which is almost double the PS4 version. This tells me that, yeah, the Switch is becoming the preferred platform in terms of sales for third-party games even now. Momotaro there at 4, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 5, Ring Fit Adventure at 6, Animal Crossing New Horizons at 7, Minecraft at 8, there's the quintessential quintuplets PS4 version at 9, and then we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 10. Moving over to the hardware, the Nintendo Switch at the top, 267,497, a fairly large jump from the week prior, 89,104. And year to date, it is still ahead of last year's year to date this time. Remember, we just had Animal Crossing launch this time last year. So having Monster Hunter show up at this time is great because it will compare, I think, favorably to Animal Crossing, at least for a little while here. We know Animal Crossing ran all year in terms of sales, so I don't think Monster Hunter is going to keep up with Animal Crossing, but it certainly had a nice surge here for the Switch. And look at this, the PS5, 62,295. It looks like Sony is able to get more stock out there, at least here for this week, almost doubling, coming close to doubling the previous weeks, which is awesome to see. The PS4, 2,189. The Xbox Series actually fell a bit. It has now crossed 40,000 units lifetime, which means that they need another 60,000, 61,000, something like that, to cross the Xbox One's overall lifetime sales. So there's progress being made there, I guess. And then we have the 3DS at 933. So obviously a big opening for Monster Hunter Rise at retail in Japan. And we had already heard some numbers from Capcom, 4 million units that they had shipped out. So we were expecting a big number like this. But obviously the effect on the Switch system itself, pushing up over 260,000 units. You know what? I expect Monster Hunter Rise to continue running here in Japan, and that should, as long as there is stock available anyway for the Switch, continue that to move along well. Even with Animal Crossing being something they're competing with from last year, I think they'll still probably beat their overall year to date in 2021 compared to last year, especially if Nintendo has some big things planned for the second half of this year, especially with that Zelda anniversary coming up, so something to keep an eye on there. Next up, let's talk about one of the more fun April Fool's Day jokes from yesterday, and that being around Control. You can see this video here. This is Control 1996. It's a gameplay teaser. It's available now. You just have to go over to the Control website, and actually, no, this is actually a fun little gameplay snippet that they put up here, a video up on YouTube, I guess showing what Control would look like on the original PlayStation. It's basically a teaser as a demake of Control. And the reason I like this kind of an April Fool's Day joke is because it's pretty obvious it's an April Fool's Day. Like, no one was like, oh wow, the PS1 version of Control. Everyone saw it and got a good laugh out of it. And I still don't think that's exactly what it looked like, obviously, but it's them kind of getting closer to the idea of a PS1 version for Control. You know what? I would play that. If they decided to release a level like that, yeah, I would check it out. What would be really cool is if they were able to make it actually work on real hardware. So if you have like the X Station or an emulator on your PC, I guess you could play it there. But at the very least, this would be a fun filter effect maybe to release for Control. You're not going to leave it on for the whole game, but something to switch on and off occasionally on PC, just see how the world would look back in 1996 would be fun. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077 and CD Projekt Red. It's a release that did not go well at all for CD Projekt. In fact, it's still not up on the PlayStation Store despite them releasing a literal novel of patch notes that we've went over previously in a news wave. But they had an entire video that came out kind of talking about their plans for the future of Cyberpunk, The Witcher, and just CD Projekt Red in general. You can see some of that here, and they also put out several different slides going over how they were going to work towards possibly multiplayer aspects of these games or future games. Basically, it doesn't sound like they're going to have that standalone multiplayer Cyberpunk 2077 game as was previously mentioned, and that sounded like it was years off anyway, which tells me they still had a lot of work to do on it. And after seeing how buggy and glitchy the offline Cyberpunk 2077 is now, that would have been something. Those patch notes would have been absolutely out of control for an online version. Anyway, you can see a slide here kind of going over some of the details, as well as some comments from the president and joint CEO, Adam Kaczynski, saying, let's stress this here, CD Projekt Red makes single-player, story-driven AAA RPGs. Given our new, more systematic and agile approach, instead of primarily focusing on one big online experience or game, we are focusing on bringing online into all of our franchises one day. We are building an online technology that can be seamlessly integrated into development of our future games. And based on the slide that they have here, they show kind of where they are and where they're going here from the two. And they do mention a more agile delivery, as in less wait time between releases, mostly because they would work to have a team work on both games at the same time. Rather than try to support two different teams, they would more or less be one large team that could kind of coincide and work on both titles. For example, if they're working on a Cyberpunk and a Witcher game at the same time to help each other out and have less of a gap between releases. And the biggest thing here is they wanted to stress that they are dedicated to the Cyberpunk franchise and the Witcher franchise. And that's, I mean, they're fans of both. I know Cyberpunk hasn't gone over that well, but like The Witcher is a series that people really, really enjoy. So I'm happy to hear that they're going to continue working on more and more Witcher titles, possibly bringing online as a focus into that as well, which that'll be interesting to see how all of that turns out. But at least they're not just kind of cutting and running with Cyberpunk 2077. It sounds like they are going to continue working on that, probably, let's face it, for years to come, just so they can get it back on the PlayStation Store. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, a story popped up today around ESA charging money for extra coverage of E3. So would you pay for a virtual ticket to E3 with added benefits and coverage? You know what? This poll went exactly as I expected. 92% of you said no, I just want to see the game reveals and trailers, and 8% of you said yes, if the added benefits were worth it. Okay, how about this? They show Elden Ring at this E3 digital event, and then anyone who bought the virtual ticket gets to play a demo for it. All of a sudden, they'd make a ton of money, more money than they would having an event. Right now, I think it's strange to have to pay for a ticket to have games advertised to you. I know E3, it's trying to navigate a very strange and difficult time for, obviously, these large events, and they're trying to figure out how to make this whole thing work. But I don't think it's going to work charging people $35 for a pass to see extended trailers or even try out game demos. There's a whole experience that goes into E3, obviously. Going there, seeing the really cool booths set up by Nintendo and others, and get to try everything out on the show floor. So here's hoping really they can figure out this digital event, and then we get to 2022 and maybe we can go back to E3 being an in-person event. We'll see how all of that works out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Beefy saying, imagine if Nintendo taking down 3D All-Stars was the biggest April Fools. No, the biggest April Fools would have been yesterday morning, so April 1st. Shinya Takahashi shows up in a video, similar to the Metroid Prime 4 reboot that they had to do, where they had to talk about development not going well and they're starting over, giving it to Retro Studios. Very serious video. Like, oh, we hear you guys. We've seen the community feedback, the outpouring of support for these games, and you don't want them to go away. Mario 35, Mario 3D All-Stars, and we hear you. We understand a lot of time has been poured into Mario 35, and what we're going to do is we are going to continue printing and sending out Mario 3D All-Stars to stores. We're going to continue selling it on the eShop, and we're also going to build out a full free expansion for Mario 35 because we listen to you guys. April Fools. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's E3 2021. It's gonna be a digital event, and the report around a paywall didn't go over so well online. E3 was quick to respond, but do you think they were considering that and had pitched it to some of those publishers? And do you think they could actually make that work? Let me know about that one down below. And then we see the sales for Monster Hunter Rise in Japan. How much further do you think this thing is gonna run? And do you think it could eventually overtake Monster Hunter World? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.